On January 25th, 1955, Minister for External Affairs Lester B. Pearson gave an extended reply in the House of Commons to a question on Formosa from opposition leader John Diefenbaker. After distancing Canada from American policies supporting the Chiang Kai-shek government, Pearson reaffirmed, "The position of the Canadian government is that Formosa should be neutralized, that the final disposition of Formosa should be dealt with by international negotiations, and certainly in any decision regarding the future of Formosa, the wishes of the people there, which are often forgotten in discussions of this matter, should be a primary consideration." A few years later, in 1961, the Progressive Conservatives under John Diefenbaker were the government. In the annual UN debate on the question of representation of China in the United Nations, Canada's representative stated, "It is the firm opinion of my delegation that there must be preserved for the people of Formosa the right to self-determination, that is, the right to determine their own future." Rejecting China's claim that the future of Taiwan was exclusively Peking's affair, Canada's representative emphasized, "Believing that the people of Formosa have a clear and inalienable right to decide their own future, we cannot for a moment agree that there is any justice in the claim made by the government in Peking, that it can impose as a condition of its own representation, denial of the representation of the people of Formosa." In neither of these statements was there any recognition of the claims of the Republic of China to be the government of all of China, nor was there any hint of a two-China policy, but already the bottom line of Canada's one-China policy, preserving a space for Taiwan's people to have the right to self-determination, was stated as Canadian policy. Canada, in fact, had established diplomatic relations with China in 1943, but never set up an embassy in Taipei, even though the Republic of China did have an embassy in Ottawa. In 1968, Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau initiated a review of Canada's foreign policies with a view to demonstrating our independence from the United States policies. Establishing diplomatic relations with the People's Republic of China was the centerpiece of that initiative. The proposal to open negotiations about diplomatic recognition with China went to the federal cabinet on January 27, 1969. In those discussions, it was concluded Canada would recognize the Peking government as the only government of China, without necessarily accepting China's territorial claims over areas in which it did not exercise jurisdiction. The formula also envisaged the possibility that Canada might permit representatives of the Taiwan government to have a trade mission in Canada. Most interesting in that proposal is that the recommendation on Taiwan was amended to make it clear that Canada would not accept any commitment that precluded Canadian recognition of an independent state of Taiwan, if that were at all feasible. When asked about the switch in recognition, Trudeau said to the media at one point, "We are not going to sell out Taiwan." And in the House of Commons, Foreign Affairs Minister Mitchell Sharp once said, "If the truth were told, we actually have a one China, one Taiwan policy." During 18 long months of negotiations, prolonged only because of the issue of Taiwan, the PRC insisted that Canada recognize its claims to Taiwan, but Trudeau held firm, and eventually, with the famous paragraph "takes note of formula," China had to accept Canada's principled position. This one China policy truly deserves to be remembered as one of Canada's greatest diplomatic triumphs. Trudeau's friendship for the people of Taiwan, but not for the Republic of China, was demonstrated again in the 1976 Montreal Olympics. Trudeau said that because of our one China policy, the team from Taiwan could not compete in Canada under the name of China. In the face of outraged American opposition, an unhappy International Olympic Committee, and much condemnation in the Canadian media, Trudeau proposed Taiwan's team was welcome to compete under any name they wanted, as long as it did not include the name China. Had Jianjingu agreed to this offer from Trudeau, there would today be a Taiwan team in the Olympics. After 1970, Canada-Taiwan relations developed slowly, but in a continuous uphill direction. In 1980, a Taiwan Chamber of Commerce office was set up in Toronto, which also arranged visas for travel. In 1983, the first official trade delegation from Taiwan visited Canada. And then, a shock, in February 1986, the head of that Taiwan Chamber of Commerce in Canada was deported from Canada for arranging visits of members of parliament to Taiwan, something which was prohibited in his mandate. Despite this crisis, a Canadian trade office in Taipei was set up in November that very same year. The first two CTOT directors were borrowed from the Chamber of Commerce in Taiwan to preserve the fiction of it being a non-governmental institution. But from 1991, CTOT directors have all been Canadian diplomats appointed directly by External Affairs, or now we say Global Affairs Canada. CTOT operates as a full embassy in all but name. In fact, on July 7th, our current director, Jordan Reeves, visited President Tsai in her office at the Zongdongfu in Taipei. On this side of the Pacific, the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office was opened in Toronto in 1991, and then in 1993, permitted to open in Ottawa and in Vancouver. Over the past 25 years, the restrictions on its activities in Canada have been gradually lessened. Today, Canadian MPs openly address the CTOT director as Mr. Ambassador, and a steady stream of MPs visits Taiwan every year, coming back with glowing reports. The other interesting constant in Canada's One China policy is that when it is in opposition, one of our political parties will be a strong advocate of strengthening relations with Taiwan. But once in power, they continue the One China policy as it has been since 1970. For example, in 1992, Liberal Member of Parliament Jim Peterson, a strong friend of Taiwan, famously stated in a KMT party headquarters in Taipei, no less, that if Taiwan declared independence, it was the policy of Canada, or at least of the Liberal Party, that we would recognize it. A couple of years later, Peterson was a junior cabinet minister, and his Taiwanese friends never heard from him again. On the other side, in 2005, the opposition hyper-conservatives were pushing hard to pass a Taiwan Affairs Act that would upgrade Canada's relations with Taiwan. Once they came to power after the October election in 2005, we never heard another word about the Taiwan Affairs Act. At that time, I was president of the Taiwanese Human Rights Association of Canada, and I wrote twice to the Conservative MP who had sponsored the Taiwan Affairs Bill, urging him to reintroduce it. I never even received a reply. But the bottom line of this talk is this: Canada's One China policy has consistently, for over 60 years, sought to preserve a space in which the Taiwanese people can exercise their right of self-determination, which awaits an independent state of Taiwan, if this were at all feasible. I thank you for your time, and believe that now we will have a question and answer session.